We have an unidentified flying object.
I'm Jack Oswald, and you're listening.
This is Hudson Hamlin, and you're listening to...
I'm Richard C. Hoagland, and you're listening to...
I'm Art Bell, and you're listening to Dr. J Radio Live.
We have an unidentified flying object.
It is Reuben Langdon. He is a filmmaker, a producer, an actor, and so much more, even a stuntman. You guys may have noticed him from his new series, Interview with Interdimensional, which we will be speaking about, as well as filming all the citizen hearing testimonies, and is in charge of the official hearing footage being out there. And even more so, there's other things you might even recognize him from, such as Avatar or that famous game series Devil May Cry, and so much more. Without further ado, let's bring on Mr. Reuben Langdon. Reuben, it's a pleasure to have you.
How's it going? Thanks for having me, Dr. J.
It's a pleasure, man. I know it's going to be awesome. When I had you on last time with Jeremy, we still ran out of time, even though we had a 2-hour show. So I know that's going to happen. First, go ahead and let's tell everybody about where they can find you and about your series. And before we start asking questions about that, I just want you to spit out the website. Then I want to get some of your opinion on some of the news real quick. And then we'll go into detail of interview with the Interdimensional after the citizen hearing. But just go ahead and tell them when they could find you.
Well, I've got my personal website, which is in a lot of need of updating, but it's ReubenLangdon.com, super simple. First name and last name, and that's REUBN, like the sandwich. I always tell everybody, easy to remember. And then, obviously, the citizenhearing.org is the website that has all of that information on that project. And my new project, which I just launched and it's getting going, is Interview with Ed. I don't have an actual website for it up yet. I do have a Facebook page, just Facebook.com/Interview with Ed, all like no spaces. And then also a Vimeo page, which there's links on the Facebook page if you can't find it. So Vimeo on demand Vimeo.on/Interview with Ed. And and that's kind of what's going on with me right now.
And everybody out there,
all the promotional stuff, but yeah,
everybody out there is going to hear exactly what Interview with an ED is all about soon. But first, let's go over some news. Now, you haven't heard some news directly from me since last week, and some of this did come out last week, but it is relevant, which is why I would love for all of you out there listening to, if you want, comment on it. And you're more than welcome to call in throughout the show. If you have any questions for Reuben, you want to comment on something, whatever you want, 818-923-1713. The first piece of news is basically what NASA announced, and this was made on January 18th, so last week. And it was NASA confirms extraterrestrial life does exist.
Privy to all the information and investigations that we've been doing and all the researchers. It's just simple, basic math, and I'm glad NASA has come to terms to the math that there's this infinite universe out there that, of course, with the billions and billions of stars that are out there, that life has to exist. It's just mathematically impossible. So, I mean, I'm glad they're saying this. They should have said it, when NASA was first formed. They should have said these claims and made that statement to kind of get people in the right headspace. But they finally said it. It's good.
Exactly. And there's a great book out there called One, or Probability One, and it basically takes the Frank Drake equation and makes it, plugs in numbers, and it's probability 1, meaning 100% that there is life out there. And I think this is ironic too, because recently SETI announced that the way that they've been looking for extraterrestrials may be antiquated. Duh. Haven't we been saying that too? Looking for radio waves, which we are no longer really using at the way we were 50, 70 years ago. They are now considering looking at lights. So it's just the way that you can see cities in space because of the artificial light they create. That's what they're considering doing, is start looking at planets orbiting in the Goldilocks zones, and there's over 5,000 Goldilocks planets now, that to see if they could see artificial light. I'm like, well, great. And finally, you guys thought of something better than radio waves. So I thought that was just ironic. Now, this came out within 10 days, maybe 2 weeks tops of, I'm sure you all know this, the CIA tweet, which basically said all UFOs were the U-2 spy plane, which is ludicrous. The U-2 spy plane was being designed, I believe, in the late 40s and started flying in the 50s, somewhere around that time frame. If it wasn't the 40s it was being designed, it was the 50s. How can they account for the famous cases that were in the 40s or the 30s and before? They can't. That's ludicrous. I'm sure you heard about this tweet, Reuben. What do you think of that tweet?
Yeah, that's just simple, trying to get people, who are already kind of on the fence about UFOs, who may have started to come over a little bit and listen to some of the data, and this is just, a way to click them back into their old ways, and, oh, it's official, CIA said it, yeah, they said it, that's the gospel truth. I'm they're always telling the truth, those CIA guys, so let's just believe that for another, few more years until that's all it is. I think it's just.
This is why I'm happy we have this alternative media, such as this network, YouTube, and what you've produced on Vimeo, because we're waking people up, and people are starting to realize, well, maybe what they're saying is false, like it's always been. And one more little piece of snippet news. I'm sure everyone out there knows about the ISS, and most people still know that they can see the ISS feed anytime just by going to NASA's website. Well, lately, in the last few months, around the ISS seems to be this crazy, giant, almost straight out of movies, for lack of a better word, object. It's not quite rectangular. It doesn't look like it's organic by having any curves. It's got a lot of right angles in it and a lot of what looks like antennas or things sticking out of it, but it looks like something massive, and it's blue. And every time it's on, available to watch, and for instance, I was screen captured twice, and both times that I was screen captured, it immediately stopped. One time during the screen capture, the second time a few minutes after, because I posted the link to it, and everyone said, where is it? It's just showing static. I thought that was really interesting. So those are the news for today. And of course, anybody out there wants to share something or tweet about it, feel free to. You could always use the hashtag DM chat, or use my name at drjradiolive, Dr. J Radio Live. And that is the same account for all social media: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Flickr, Tumblr, all of them, as well as the website, DRJ Radio Live. Now, let's go talk to something about something really, really important, because this was the event that really is putting us closer to disclosure, and that is the citizen hearing on disclosure, which took place April and May of 2013, where I was watching every minute, and I was blown away, where over the course of those 5 days, over 40 hours of testimony from over 40 witnesses, and you were able to see the transformation of the mock Senate committee go from skeptics to believers. And Reuben was involved in that. What was your involvement, Reuben? When did this first come up? And what was your role, and what did you end up doing to produce such an important event?
Yeah, so several years ago, I had was introduced to Stephen Bassett, who's I'm sure many of your listeners probably already know, and I was kind of helping him out with his advocacy and his work. And I felt strongly about, the creating the awareness in the masses of an extraterrestrial presence, here on Earth, and engaging. I've had my own sightings, which led me to hold those belief systems. So I liked his approach, because for the everyday Joe, most people need to see tangible proof. And it's a very hard thing in the UFO ET realm to have something physical that you can either see, touch, use your five senses to actually ground down in this reality. It's a lot of people have, they talk about abductions in their sleep or in a dream state, or this happened, and there's no physical proof to really show anything for it. So you're basically just going on what these people are saying. And you have of these other people, government people who work for the government, whistleblowers, and pilots and military people who have had tangible experience. When it comes to pilots who have seen craft and then it's actually picked up on radar, or you have, I guess, in the case of like Bob Salas and his the nuke SAC bases being tampered with, and then you have not only radar, but you also have the whole station being shut down, and then that going into classified documents that the government created, and then later that's kind of released. So you have his experiences plus the classified documents and other evidence and multiple witnesses. So that kind of tangible evidence was something I was very interested in, and taking the approach of presenting that to the public and the masses, I thought was a very good way to get the word out. So Bassett was going on with his advocacy, and he presented to me, he had the idea of the citizen hearing, of putting together a mock congressional hearing and putting all these people on stand to basically present it in a way that's a little more palatable to the everyday Joe. And I really resonated with that idea. And but the problem was, how do you get the funding for that without it just being donated? Not many people want to donate a bunch of money just to do that. People like to invest their money. So I was had my production company and had a film business going, and we kind of came up with the idea to film a documentary around the hearings. So then it would be a production deal in essence. So you're getting the activist cause out with the hearings, and with the documentary, you actually have with the footage and with the footage of the hearings, and then the documentary, you actually have something left over that you can monetize and would be more appealing to an investor. So we put together the package, the proposal, and we were very lucky to come across. We were introduced to Thomas Clearwater out of Canada, who liked the idea and said, "Let's do it." So things moved very quickly once the trigger was pulled, and that's kind of how I was involved. I was more on the video production side. Steve was more on the activist side, and I was going to be in charge of the film, and since that was my world and my business, and that's kind of what happened. We moved forward. The hearings took place. We hired Jeremy Corbell to do the direction of the film Truth Embargo. He had shown me some of his work on the Lear film at the time, and I was just blown away, and I'd seen some of his other personal projects, and he hadn't quite come out. He's just now coming out as the director, the amazing director he is. But I saw he had it. He had what it took and what it takes to make compelling, amazing films. So I was like, dude, you got to be on board. You got to do this, because I could hire any other, director that has an eye for it, but they may not have the passion. And Jeremy had both. He had the passion for the subject matter as well as the eye for the filming, and it really supported his vision, filmmaking style. And so we kind of brought the team together, went forward, and a lot of stuff happened during the production. We went over budget, and at the end of the day, our production budget for the documentary kind of went out the window when the hearings were said and done. So we've been in the process, Jeremy and I have been in the process of trying to raise funds and get the footage that we do have out to the public and raise money to finish the documentary. And that's kind of where we're at with that.
I'm sure everybody out there wants to see the documentary, and I'm without a doubt, I believe firmly that the funds will be secured, and everybody who was out there live is one thing, but people such as myself who had to watch it remotely wouldn't have had an opportunity if it wasn't for you to actually film it and to broadcast it for us. And I'm very grateful, as are the thousands out there who watched it live from around the world. So the fact that the footage is available now of all the testimonies is great, but I can't wait to actually see the Truth Embargo film. But nonetheless, they are available at citizenhearing.org, am I right?
Yes, citizenhearing.org, and then we have the link to the Vimeo page to watch in full HD all of the hearings, pretty much uncut. I mean, we only cut out like nose blowing and the call to turn off your cell phone. Other than that, it's all the raw testimony as it was, uncut. And I just want to throw this out because we get these statements every day on our Facebook page, and people are like, make it for free, put it out there for free. And as much as I'd love to do that, I have our company has contractual obligations to produce a documentary, and we have yet to do that. So we're in the process of monetizing the footage is what we've done, and we have to do that. And instead of making it for free and asking for donations, so that crowdfunding route, which we did do, and everybody who contributed to that, your DVDs are at the print shop right now. They're going to be to you very quickly. But getting back to the whole concept of just giving it away for free, it's great, and I understand. But when you have contractual obligations, you have deals that have been struck, and we feel that this is the best way by monetizing the footage, and you guys actually putting your money and actually getting something out of it immediately. You can buy a pass online and get the footage, and soon we'll have the DVDs out for everybody who donated to the campaign, so they will have their DVDs in hand, physical, tangible goods that they get for their donation and now for their money. I think it's the best kind of energy exchange. We're giving you something, you're giving us something, and we're going to take what you give us and we're going to produce more. It's not like we're going to take this money and pocket it and go run off and do whatever. Every single penny that comes in from the sales of the Vimeo, and hopefully in the future we'll get the DVDs out there, will go back into finishing what we started, and that is funding the Truth Embargo film and getting that completed, because there's still a lot of work that needs to be done on the post side, still a lot of filming. We've only about half done with the filming, and we want to create something that is going to appeal to a wide audience, something that has high production value. And high production value is usually high production, money. It costs money to get things done and doing it right. And, sound design. There's so much that goes into a film, and all you filmmakers out there know exactly what I'm talking about. It has become easier with technology, but there still is a lot, and we do need funds. We need funds to finish what we started. So that's what's happening. I just wanted to set the record straight. Thanks for giving me the time and space to do that.
Of course.
I know there's a lot of listeners out there. I would get that every day. I get about 3 emails a day asking, put it out there for free. And then I kind of have a template email now. I just cut and paste and say, like, this is the situation. And always when I explain it like that, then everybody gets it. And they're like, oh, totally get it. Thank you. I'll do whatever I can to support. So, it's just that story hasn't been told, I guess, enough, and people haven't heard it. Once they hear it, they get it. So thank you for your patience, everybody out there listening.
Of course. Thank you for setting the record straight. Let me ask you something
Sure.
about the actual citizen hearing over the 5 days that you were there. What parts struck you as the most enlightening to the congressman? And of course, Senator Gravel has appeared here, so has Congressman
Yes.
collectively between the two of them, I think 6 times total. As of
Yeah,
course,
you've done a great job of getting the team together back
yeah,
together. So
yeah,
thank
and of
you so
course
much.
Paul Hellier, he's been on
Yeah.
here 3 times and plus the other shows, as well as he'll be returning again. Everybody out there listening in about 4 weeks on the Thursday. I can't tell you the date right now off the top of my head. I believe it is the 12th. February 12th, but don't quote me on that. You could all see it on the website. But point being is everyone has their own opinions of what is the most astounding parts of it, and I want to know what yours are.
Yeah, I during the hearings, I wasn't actually present in the room listening that much because I was busy putting out fires, and it was just so much to do and so little time, and we had Congress people to feed and witnesses to take care of and make sure they were all in order, so and in their positions at the right time. So there's a lot going on, all the filming side of things, making sure the live stream was in order, and there was a lot to do. So I actually didn't really get to experience the hearings, the information coming from the hearings, until I sat down and started editing it. And I spent this whole summer, really, like 4 months, really going through it. We had hired some editors, and then we had some volunteers come in to do a lot of work, and it got it so far. But I really the footage and the hearing testimony is so precious, and I really wanted to make sure that what goes out there is of higher quality. So I spent 4 months really doing the polish edits on everything, and so I've heard it a lot actually now since listening to the edits, and I'm grateful I had that time and experience to do that. I would say, all of it's super, super compelling and just mind blowing to hear the testimony, and then to go and do the research afterwards and look at the documents, the Freedom of Information Act documents, to look at the newspaper clippings, to look at the radar reports. But one of my favorite people who testified that wasn't there a whole lot was but enough, Danny Sheehan, in day one. He said, I forgot the exact quote, but he basically said, the whole issue is a problem of worldview. And that, I think, sums it up in essence. Is we've been through our governments and through our institutions and our schooling and our culture and our influences, our media, everything has influenced us to kind of think and believe a certain way. And what the whole ET contact, extraterrestrial presence engaging humanity, the whole paradigm shift with that idea is you incorporate a whole new worldview of reality. We're not alone in the universe. What does that mean? What does that mean for society? What does that mean for the individual? It doesn't mean aliens are going to come down and take me out of bed. It doesn't matter. They can never show up. But if you explore that worldview, that mind-altering consciousness shift, your entire life changes. And that's what happened to me. When I had this experience, I had my sighting in 2007, and it wasn't instantaneous. And I think humanity is going through this shift that I went through in 2007, the slow drip disclosure of coming to the terms, coming to the facts with the NASA news thing that you mentioned today. We're coming to the realization that we are not alone in the universe. And with that comes a whole new worldview on how to move through reality and navigate your life, and you make conscious choices now. You make different choices because you now have a different set of eyes. And to me, that sums up. That's the essence of the entire citizen hearing and of all of the information collectively is what Danny Sheehan mentioned about having an entire new worldview on reality.
Yeah.
Sorry to go so broad and
No,
with
that's
all of
great.
that,
And he's a great guy. He's actually someone I'm working on to get, if all these out there who don't know much about him, I do know, I don't know the details of this case, but something where it was a civil suit and he was allowed to view photographs from Roswell. And that's what I think churned him around. And then, of course, he's...
Actually, he mentioned he was actually the representation for the Vatican at the time, for the Jesuits.
That's what it was. So he was there. Yeah. He was their attorney for that in that case. Is that what you're saying?
And he was allowed in. Yeah, I also forget the details. I don't quote me on this. And I should know better, being the producer of this stuff. But he went into I forgot in Washington, one of the files or something, and saw some photographs and saw like some markings on one of the crafts and kind of scribbled down. He wasn't allowed to take notes, but he had his notepad, so he kind of traced on the cardboard of the notepad what the symbols were, and then when he had to show to the guard his notes, and they kind of flipped through it to make sure he didn't, write anything that was going to, I guess, come out. They let him go, but he still had these symbols, which I haven't seen. He said he was going to give it for the testimony on them and then submit it for the record, but we never got that far. I guess in the future, when there's more legit hearings and that needs to be presented, hopefully we can get that notebook and the symbols. But there was a lot of other symbols that were submitted through Jesse Marcel and through the Ben Waters case. So there's lots of alien symbols out there.
Yeah,
we gotta share. But he has some too, so it'd be nice to kind of see how they all match up, if they do match up.
And then, of course, he also helped John Mack. John Mack was a tenured professor at Harvard, a psychiatrist in the medical school. And, of course, when he started looking into alien abductions and realizing these people aren't schizophrenic or psychotic, they are genuinely suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome from something that happened. And so Harvard wanted to kick him out. And so, of course, Danny Sheehan, being an attorney from Harvard, didn't want to see one of his fellow alums get canned because they were believing in this and looking at it from a medical point of view and a psychiatric point of view. He stepped in to prevent that and to essentially defend him against the Harvard committee, and he won. He was able to salvage is the key word, salvage John Mack's legacy as well as his profession as a tenured professor. But sadly, as everyone knows, he was killed in a car accident walking across the street, hit by a drunk driver in England about a decade ago. But very sad. But yes, Danny Sheehan has done some amazing work.
And he was I think the lawyer on the Iran-Contra case.
Yes,
trying to
that's right.
That, as well as the Pentagon Papers. So Danny, I believe, wasn't Danny Sheehan part of that as well? This guy is like, he is. If he's not an alien or an angel, he is like the stuff this guy does. And now he's attacking, or he's exposing, I should say, not attacking, he's exposing the corruption in child cases and child custody cases with the Lakota Indian tribes and what judges, his judges are doing there. Anyways, this man has had an amazing career, and he's doing all kinds of good for humanity. And I think he's just an alien with his white hair, and he's just coming down from another galaxy here to it's like Superman or something, a lawyer Superman.
Yeah, he absolutely is doing a whole lot of good for us, and he is one of my inspirations, being a fellow JD. And I would hope to able to accomplish when I'm at least when I've reached that stage in his life of mine, I would hope to have accomplished similar things, such as saving people who are getting a bad rap for believing in this and doing something good, and more importantly, exposing scandals that the government has perpetuated and more. So yes, I'm actually glad that you mentioned he was one of the people that struck you as one of the best testimonies, because I too also agree. Before we go into your series, let's talk about another a part that stuck out in your mind? Because to me, obviously, what I noticed getting a lot of reactions from the people was, of course, both the Rendlesham incident, the VA hiding, Peniston and Burroughs stuff, as well as just the nuclear facilities in general, not just with what Sala said, not just with Rendlesham, but the fact that our nuclear facilities were clearly observed and many times interrupted and interfered with by these flying objects.
Yeah, I think the Rendlesham panel is great because these are two guys that they were in the military, they served, they did their duty, and now they're having issues with their medical records and not getting the medical attention that's needed for stuff that's happened to them while in duty. And this is something, I think every American, wherever you're at in your life, you can relate to this issue. And we've all been there. We've all been, whether you're in the military or not, just going down to the DMV, or going to the post office. Yeah, it's just like everything in our government is such a bureaucracy and so full of paperwork, and nothing gets done. And like Congress, the approval rating on Congress is ridiculous. Everybody, even the Congress people that were there, the former Congress people were saying it's hopeless. It's ridiculous. I have no faith in Congress anymore because it takes forever to get something done. So the whole system is in major need of a revamp, and we all can relate to that. So their testimony, the Bentwaters panel, and their testimony is something that I think everybody can relate to, and it's just so down to earth of what these guys are dealing with still currently today and getting their medical records. So yes, I highly recommend that panel. I mean, all of it, every single bit of it, the South American panel, and just gives you some insight on what's going on in other countries and the evidence. I mean, Brazil's opening up thousands and thousands of their files and thousands of pages of documents of their files. And AJ
Gavard
has been responsible for really doing the work there, and had some powerful testimonies. And there's so much there, and that's why the citizen hearing it's phenomenal. And I feel like now that that's there and that's in the cosmos, in the ether, we have this kind of go-to spot. If anybody doubts the ET phenomenon, you just say, just plug in 30 hours of this.
Yeah.
and then if you still doubt after that, go and research each individual case, because it was still pretty short. Each case that was presented was just more sound bites. But within the 5 days of testimony, there were a lot of cases, a lot of things were presented. Go and do the research on your own. Follow up on the Bentwaters case. Follow up on, there's books that, on the nuke basis. I think Bob Salas has got a book. Hastings has got books. There's a lot of information out there that go into a lot of the detail that's happened at the cases that were spoken about at the citizens hearing. So I always challenge anybody now who is kind of a disbeliever, and it's funny that we even have to use that terminology. Are you a believer or are you just a believer? And it's like, let's just look at science, and let's look at facts, and let's look at documentation, and let's look at what's real. How do you base your reality in this world currently? And the only reason you're basing your disbeliefs in that is because either you haven't had a personal experience or you haven't looked at the facts. And obviously our media and our society is just not pushing it in front of your face. Every day they're pushing, ridiculous TV shows and commercials and materialism and separation and all this garbage of war. And, that's the reality they want you to believe. And that's what most people believe, because that's what they're getting spoon-fed every day. So I recommend listening to alternative radio like this one and get informed of the facts of what is really going on. And yes, a lot of the stuff still hasn't been proven, but trust me, there is enough evidence that I swear, anybody who would like to debate the subject, go to the citizen hearing and or give me a call. I'll have a conversation with you of what reality is, and then it's up to us really to choose. Do we keep feeding the war propaganda? Do we keep feeding, the corrupt government, or do we take things in our own hands and say, oh, no, this is how it is, and this is the reality that I want to live in, and this is the reality I want to create for my children and future generations. So let's go this way. Why buy into all the propaganda and the lies of all the other garbage? So anyways, that's citizen hearing. Yes, it was awesome, and it will continue to grow.
That's right.
To date, it still is the most, condensed body of collective testimony and evidence on the subject matter, that exists, I believe. From
some of the most unimpeachable, most credible, and some cases most humble people that you can have. I mean, who can
Absolutely.
degrade astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell? I mean, he's an unimpeccable character. Same thing with Paul Hellyer, former defense minister of Canada.
Absolutely.
You have to give him a second shot. If you're not doing a double take when you hear him talking about these issues, knowing that he's still in his right mind in every single way, the way he speaks, the way he talks, everything acts, he's speaking from the heart, and obviously he's done his homework. Anyway, I want to make this transition to a very important series that you're making, but I actually do have two separate questions from listeners. Let's go ahead and read them in reverse order. The first one here says, the word acclimation, acclimating the public to ET contact. Some say Hollywood was enlisted to help acclimate the public through sci-fi. What do you think, Reuben?
I'm sure. Yeah, I know there was cases. Even during the citizen hearing, I think Grant Cameron had mentioned following the money trail on some films that were funded by government agencies or related people to talk about ETs. And I know there's that Disney film that's mind blowing. If you ever get a chance, look at the Walt Disney UFOs. It's like in the 80s or something, and they go into they talk about, I think John Mack is actually on the show. They talk about alien abductions and everything, and you're like, wow, Disney did this, and apparently it only showed for a couple of weeks and then it was taken down. But I think there were some agendas to get the word out, and then there's agendas to disinform, and then there's agendas to put a stop to it all. I think we all think the government is in cahoots on this stuff, and I think when you get up to certain levels, as it is anywhere, there's the good guys and the bad guys, and the guys who only care about themselves, and there's battles on all levels, and we're getting what we get, and then we have to make our own decisions.
The second question, this has to go with the fact that you have been involved in the motion picture industry, as well as know probably a lot of celebrities. I've interviewed a few of them, one of them most notably being Jack Osbourne, son of Ozzy Osbourne, and he essentially talked about the fact that he got into UFOs, not because so much of his own personal thing, but because growing up, every time his father would come back from tour and visiting all these other countries, he would bring him UFO books as if he had this crazy obsession with UFOs. And of course, it carried over into Jack. And now he's into this. He was present, as you know, at the patient 17 removal, implant removal with Dr. Roger Lear. And of course, he was so much more. As a matter of fact, with that being said, I think we are actually getting a caller. Area code 773, welcome to the show.
Hello.
How are you? Can you turn down the radio in your background?
Oh, sure.
Yes. There you go.
Hello.
Okay, what's your name?
My name is Natalie Norman.
Natalie, welcome to have you. Got a question for Reuben or anything you want to say to everybody?
Hello. Okay, let me just ask this. I have always believed there's a thing called cosmic alchemy.
Welcome to have you. Got a question for Reuben? You got to turn down that radio if you can. Turn down the radio in the Natalie background. Just
All
pause.
right, sorry.
There you go.
Cosmic alchemy. Do you ever believe that existed? I mean, I always believed that was one of the reasons why we exist as human beings.
Reuben?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that term. I don't really know what that means, actually. I know about, I've heard the term alchemy, and I've heard about cosmic stuff, but I'm not really sure what cosmic alchemy is.
Natalie, why don't
couldn't
you give him a better explanation of what you think it is and what you know it to be?
I believe it has to be the cosmos. The in my mind, I've had these ideas that there have been people, basically probably human, before us, from a long civilization long ago, that created something that actually had. I don't know if I can put Noah. I'm sorry. I'm trying to fit.
Well, I think I have an idea what you're saying, because I totally am on board with this. As a matter of fact, are you saying essentially that other beings came here and basically mixed our DNA with others to create the modern race of humans?
Sure. Yes, I believe that.
I think that's definitely a very plausible thing. A lot of people that's gained a lot more traction these days, and I think it's not just here on Earth. I think it's on other planets as well, according to all these guests that have come on here. Anthony Sanchez wrote that amazing book, UFO Highway, that talks about Dulce, where they ran into the Greys in 1940 looking for an area to build the atomic bomb for the Manhattan Project, and they essentially told him the history of man, which included these rays coming from another system and ending up on Earth. But because they couldn't adapt, they had to create a subspecies using their DNA and local DNA to create something that's adaptable, yet something that they can live on. So I totally think that's very, very plausible. I've never heard it called cosmic alchemy, but I now can relate the two. Reuben, what do you think of that theory?
Actually, this might be a good segue for me to talk about my new series.
Yeah.
Interview with Ed. It's actually Ed. ED stands for Extradimensionals, which started out as extraterrestrials, but during my interviews with them, the extraterrestrials, they said, you know what? We prefer to be called extradimensionals. That would be a more accurate term for what we are in your reality. So it's kind of a quick backstory. There's a trailer online. You can it's a really short kind of explanation. But basically, I've been in all this ET stuff. I had my sightings, produced a citizen hearing, and I'm like, what's really going on here? You know, we have an idea that all this stuff exists. My worldview has been changed. I'm really deep into this stuff. But I want to know more. So I started asking questions. And I came to the awareness that there is a number of channeled material, which I'm sure your audience is probably familiar with, and there's I think Esther Hicks and Seth Speaks is from several years ago, but there's a lot of people who kind of go into this trance state, and they channel this information, and a lot of people would say, oh, that's demons and that's demonic and that's horrible stuff coming out. But those people who say that don't actually listen to what the information is being said. And I stumbled upon Bashar, which is a entity channeled by Daryl Anka, and he claimed, Bashar claimed to be an extraterrestrial energy coming from, I think, the Essassani is the name of the race that he comes from, a hybrid race, kind of from the future, but in kind of sort of, because what all these channelers have said is that time is kind of an illusion. So, but and it really intrigued me. I'm like, wow. I started listening to this information, and I couldn't get enough. I was digging and reading and listening and finding, the Palladians have come through many times, Arcturians, even our Zeta Reticuli buddies, who don't necessarily say they're Greys. Some of that's kind of touched upon on some of the interviews and the future interviews I do, but all of these different collectives is mostly how they present themselves, are coming through, and they're telling us a story that is so intriguing and so bizarre, but yet it connects all of the dots, all of the questions that I had based on all my other research. I started getting answers, and things were fitting together. And then I said, well, I can't just take one source and what their information is. So I started what I've been on now, and still am on this journey of personally interviewing these entities, these collective energies from throughout the galaxy. And I know everybody's gonna. I think there's still some noise in the background there, but there is people probably listening saying this guy has been eating way too many mushrooms or something. but what I like to present to people is listen to the information and then see if it resonates with you. If it doesn't, no big deal, turn the channel. But there's some profound information coming through these channels that if we apply it to our life, and this is getting back to what I was saying earlier with Danny Shannon, creating a new worldview, we can literally create heaven on earth. And that by not buying into all of the separation and craziness. So I don't know. Did you, Dr. Dave, is that a good enough presentation on that? I have like a list of things that I've been kind of bullet points that I'd like to kind of cover from these entities collectively that I've seen through my research that they're talking about.
Yeah,
like to present.
let's do it. Absolutely. And let me see if Natalie has a question so far. Do you?
Well, actually, that's about it. There is something. Suppose we do happen to look to the world that there are things that exist outside of this earth. And I believe in that, pretty much so. Even though I was raised religiously, but I've had a few problems, questions of faith, basically. And I was wondering, is there any way to maybe put religion out of the way so people can actually listen and talk and hear and understand that there's more to life than thinking about God or whatnot? I mean, personally, I would think God is like an alien. Or what?
Okay, well, let me just address that. Yeah. So I think what humanity has developed, which is so important and the best thing that's ever happened to us, is science. And science stumps everything, right? You know, the scientific method is impeccable. It takes a while for science to prove things sometimes, but we need it. And that basically what science does is it gets us all on the same page. And yes, so answer to your first question, is there something that's going to basically prove that, some of disprove or get people out of their crazy belief systems? Science. So I highly recommend science. And the thing with science is it can be debated, but not really. When you look at the data, then essentially you have to come up with certain conclusions based on the data. And there's theoretical conclusions and this and that. But at the end of the day, you're stuck with these facts. And, they're collectively, throughout the people who are stuck with these facts, they have to make a choice on whether to act on them or not. We often totally ignore science, and we still make up crazy stuff every day. But ultimately, at the end of the day, science will prevail. And like I said, it's a little slow sometimes to prove some of the things that we already know because the scientific community isn't actually looking at the data. Sometimes our mainstream scientific community, but there are great scientists who, even if they're not mainstream yet, they do look at the data and they do experiments over and over that can be repeated throughout the world. And then we come to some great conclusions, and that's how we evolve as a species. So, yes, if God is telling you one thing, you're God, and science is telling you another, well, and the rest of humanity is on board with the science, and the rest of humanity is not on board with your God, you know what? You might want to reconsider who your God is. but at the end of the day, you can still believe your God, even if the rest of humanity doesn't. But that kind of leaves you in a different position. So consider that. And I forgot what the second part of the question was, but I think that probably answers both of them.
Well, I wanted to say, Natalie, we are getting close to the end of time, and I want to hear Reuben talk about some of what's come. But Natalie, thank you for calling, and you are absolutely more than welcome to call anytime we're on, Tuesdays or Thursdays.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So,
Thanks,
Reuben, considering we got a little under 5 minutes, I would definitely want to hear what you've heard from these channelings, as well as the listeners. I'm sure they're dying to hear, what happens when you interview an extra dimensional.
Well, so I've been asking some key kind of worldview questions that I think, some questions are personal, but most of my personal questions are actually what is really going on with reality, with our reality as we know it. And then what I like to do is I go back into where science is right now, and science is moving very quickly. And it's supporting everything that these extra-dimensional beings are telling us. We just haven't looked into it because it's moving so fast. So one of the biggest things that I think science is coming to the terms very quickly is we're living in a holographic universe. We're living in a universe of two-dimensional data that is being perceived in a three-dimensional reality. And what does that mean for us? That means that basically, the simple term, the throwaway term is say, yeah, we're living in an illusion. We're living in a matrix. But it's not quite that simple, because you're feeling and, you hit bump your knee and it hurts, right? So you're like, that's an illusion? No, that pain was very real. Or when I eat that cookie, it tastes really good. And that's not some synthetic illusionary stuff. But when you get down to the science of it, and there's some great research being done in Chicago, one of the universities there, they're creating this holometer. If anybody wants to know about all the stuff I'm into, just follow me on Facebook. I'm constantly posting scientific
Spit
data.
out the name real quick.
It's just Facebook.com/Reuben Langdon. And I have if I don't friend accept you, it's because I'm maxed out, but I have a like page like that. All the same posts go over to that. So please check that out, including updates on interviews with Ed and other work that I've been doing in the mainstream world with my acting and stunt career. So yes, we're living in a holographic universe, which means it's very dense, but at the same time, on the microscopic level, and we've all heard this, it's just air, it's just molecules. So what is holding that together? Well, what the scientific community hasn't collectively come to the terms of, many quantum scientists are throwing this out right now, but consciousness is holding this idea of almost a God, but collectively, this consciousness is holding this three-dimensional illusion together. And when you go deeper than that, if it's all an illusion, if it's just two-dimensional waves, that means it's very flexible, it's very pliable. And thought waves are two-dimensional waves. So our thoughts actually can be morphed into concrete three-dimensional reality. It's just how much time and how the universe works and how it all works, which we're still trying to figure out. So one of the key things I like to tell people and break it down in this method, be very wary of your thoughts, because you will create that reality. And
right.
that is one of the things that these extra-dimensional beings across the board, whether you're talking to the Pleiadians, to the Arcturians, to the Zeta Reticuli, or, Essassani, or wherever they are, these are universal truths that all these beings are basically, telling us.
This is exactly why right now everyone is making a push for trying to control their thoughts to say things positively, because you do manifest. But Reuben, I hate to say it, we are almost out of time. And what I wanted to do is spend the last minute with you basically telling everybody where they can find this movie once again, as well as what's next for you and what else they can expect from you in the future.
Well, there's a lot more episodes coming. I've already got 5 other episodes shot that I have to edit and get uploaded. So they're there, they're coming. very soon, so keep your eyes out. I have the first interview I did with Wendy Kennedy, who channels the Palladian Collective, Ninth Dimensional Palladian Collective to be exact. And it's kind of a basic introduction to the whole thing. I actually shot the interview almost a year ago, so times have changed. I recommend everybody send the questions that they want me to ask these interdimensional beings to questionsforreuben@gmail.com. Questions for Reuben, that's the number 4 actually. So questions number 4, Reuben, no spaces, @gmail.com. And for future episodes, I will be asking your questions.
There you go. Everybody be sure to stay on for John Lear and Jeremy Corbell coming on next, and go on drjradiolive.com to see the schedule as well as all the shows archived one by one. This is Dr. J signing off for now, but you will be hearing John Lear. Stay tuned, everybody.